We've all had that thought before. What if? And more specifically, at some point in time, we've all thought what if about a specific person. Whether it was someone from your childhood that moved to a different town or a different school, or whether it was someone that you instantly connected with while traveling, but you both lived very different lives in very different countries. It could have been someone you knew really, really well, or someone you just had an instant spark with, but life just got in the way. It wasn't anyone's fault that it didn't work out. You were a victim of circumstance, and the timing just wasn't right. I just watched the film Past Lives, directed by Celine Song, and it's a film that beautifully captures this concept of what if, and explores the different what ifs of different people, and how they grapple with it, and eventually learn to accept it. The core of the film centers around the relationship of Nora and Haesung, two deeply connected childhood friends, and essentially childhood sweethearts, whose lives go off in drastically different directions after Nora's family immigrate to Canada from South Korea. The two reconnect as adults, Haesung, an engineering student in Seoul, and Nora in New York pursuing her career as a playwright. They spend countless hours video chatting over Skype, sharing their lives and picking up where they left off, demonstrating that that old bond was still there. But after realizing that they wouldn't be able to physically see each other for over a year, Nora decides that maybe Haesung might be distracting her from achieving her goals, and decides to take a step back from him and to give them some space. Skip forward another 12 years, and Nora is now married to a white guy and a fellow writer, Arthur, and they both live in New York City. One day, Haesung tells Nora that he's coming to visit New York, and they finally meet in person again.
혜성! 와, 너다.
와,
와.
진짜 와다. 와.
와.
And the conversations between Haesung and Nora as they wander through New York City, taking in the sights, are charged with this familiarity, but also this distance. Their words are trying to learn more about each other's lives, filling in the gaps between their last spoke, but also reflecting and reminiscing on the nostalgia of their past. And their body language just suggesting a closeness and longing. We see how they are on the subway, their hands holding the same pole close together. We see how they sneak glances at each other when the other's not looking. And we see a magnetism, a sort of pull when they stand next to each other, making them lean in towards one another. It's a film very much about what's not been said, and the body language, and sort of understanding what the other person is thinking, but not wanting to bring it up. And what they're all thinking is the what ifs. Throughout the film, both Nora and Haesung reference the Korean term inyan, which is a Buddhist-derived concept which suggests that every meeting or interaction between two souls is the result of countless interactions and crossings in their past lives. What might have happened if Nora stayed in South Korea? Would Nora and Haesung have gotten married? Would they have had kids? Maybe, and maybe not. Maybe it's because Nora left so abruptly at the peak of their childhood affections that their feelings are so heightened. And what further compounded this feeling was that the dialogue between Nora and Haesung was completely in Korean. In speaking the language that Nora grew up with, when Nora speaks with Haesung, she's reminded and transported back to that point in her life, when she was a child, when things were simple and all she really worried about were her grades and her crush on Haesung. But now, she's an adult, she's pursuing a career in a country away from her family, along with all the other complexities of being an adult. And although married, her husband, Arthur, is unable to fully understand and appreciate her cultural upbringing in Korea. And that's not for a lack of effort. Arthur clearly is invested and tries really hard to understand that part of her, but there's just something so comforting in the simplicity and familiarity of spending time with Haesung. The three characters deal with these what-ifs very differently. Nora has found her happiness and is fulfilled, but she cannot help but question what if things had been different and she had never left Korea. Haesung, for a long time, just lived within that thought of what if. He was the one that initially sought out Nora, and he was the one that accepted that Nora wanted to take some time apart. He was always the one that was holding out hope that maybe one day him and Nora would be able to make it work, and that they would somehow end up together. And Arthur just wants to know and understand Nora completely, including of course her Korean side, but he just can never fully do so, and is initially threatened by the thought that Haesung could. The arrival of Haesung makes him question what if he's the one standing in the way of Nora and her soulmate. Throughout the film, the characters each deal with these notions of what if, And by the end of the film, they've been able to reflect on those thoughts and put them to rest. And to turn around and appreciate and cherish their reality and the life that they live. Nora is finally able to speak to Haesung in person after all of this time, and she acknowledges their deep connection, but also never lets it get in the way of the fact that she truly loves and appreciates her husband and her life in New York. And she reflects and understands that her life was always meant to be bigger than just staying in Korea. And leaving Korea was a big part of who she became as a person. And she's finally able to let go of that part of her that yearned for Haesung. Haesung learns to accept that Nora is truly happy, and that her life doesn't include him, and that he and Nora will never be together romantically. He realizes that he was fixated on the idea of what Nora was to him when they were children, and that she was no longer that person. Her dreams and aspirations from then were no longer the same, and even her name wasn't the same. She'd grown up in a completely different world to him, and she had just become a different person to who he knew. And Arthur knows that Nora and Haesung have an honest, genuine, and deep connection. But he realizes that he shouldn't be threatened by it. He allows Nora to fully embrace it, because although Haesung and Nora share a cultural familiarity and a childhood connection, Nora and him share a real love and have committed and chosen to create a life together. There are no heroes, there are no villains in this film. Everyone is just dealing with the emotions of what life is throwing at them. The beauty in this film is the grace in which the three characters tackle the awkward third wheeling that inevitably ends up happening. The what ifs are always going to be there, whether they're huge what ifs or just small ones. But by constantly dwelling on what could have been or what might have been, you'll fail to be truly present in the life that you're in and the people that you're with. Rather than fantasizing about someone else or dreaming about a different life, you should be putting that energy and focus into the people that are around you every single day. We often fall into the trap of thinking of what ifs to distract us from our current situation. Maybe we feel like we're not satisfied with the life that we're living, or we just want to escape everything around us. But by taking the time to sit down and look around and appreciate and accept everything around us and our current situation, everything is there for you to find the fulfillment in the life that you've built. And once we start doing that, all those what ifs will just fall away. Anyways, I hope that made sense. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.